Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us here on YouTube Live. This is a debut on YouTube. As you are aware, we've done broadcasts on Facebook Live, we have done broadcasts on Twitch TV, and now we're trying it here on YouTube. So please feel free to join us at this hour, and we hope, or actually it'll be a half-hour broadcast, and we hope that you will actually learn a lot as to what we're going to share with you, and some of it is rather disturbing. With regard to some of the events that we have seen taking place over the past few weeks. Now, to begin with, this is a Rogers for America, Campaign for America. And to give you a little background for those of you who are new viewers, Campaign for America is an organization we put together, we meaning a group of conservatives that will be busy going around the country doing what Ronald Reagan did in his time when he fought the socialists and he fought the communists. And it ended in the result of the Communist Party being destroyed. We have a very strong socialist movement now across this nation. They are putting their roots into every state as we see happening right before our eyes. They are presenting liberal policies that are now looking to dismantle police departments across the country. They've been in our schools, they've been in our colleges, they've been interfering with our educational system for quite some time. They are now going after religious institutions, and folks, they are not going to stop. And I have shared with people all over this country that all one needs to do is to speak to someone who lived in the Soviet Union, who lived in Venezuela, who lived in Beijing, and somehow got to this country. Speak to some of those individuals, and they will tell you that we are now seeing in the United States of America, the beginning of the end. Now, you all know me that I am not one to be involved in any type of drama. I don't like drama. I don't get involved with individuals who like drama. But this is not drama, and I'm not sharing with you something that is invented. This is real. It's happening before our eyes, and we must do something to stop this. And the thing we must do is to get involved. And I'll share with you a little later on in the broadcast how we can do that. Now, many of you have written to me, emailed me, and they asked about our publications. Well, the good news is, folks, we have a store now. We're building a store. We're putting more material in that store. And if you would like to go to that store, it is rogersforamerica.store. As simple as that, rogersforamerica.store. And we have our book, Governing the Affairs of the People. This book is going to be, it is available now in the store. And this one, we found a whole lot of these. It looks like you see these backwards on the screen, but we found a whole lot of these, folks. And these books are available also in our store. So certainly go to the rogersforamerica.store, and you're going to begin to see our products and publications. Now, let's talk about what has been happening with regard to the shooting of an individual in Atlanta. Let's get to the facts, folks. I've been all over the news media. You know, I've been on Fox. In fact, today is Monday. I will be on Fox tonight with Shannon Bream at 11 o'clock p.m. By all means, tune in. But here's what we're going to be talking about, and I want to share this with you now. Let's look at the facts. Let's find out right now if the mayor of Atlanta had any justification to fire that police officer. And I think you're going to be rather surprised over what I'm going to be sharing with you. The first thing we see on the video is the police encounter the individual that was sitting in the car. He's sitting there. He's sleeping. The police, very, very professional, very calm, approach the individual. Looks like they woke him up, and they asked him to get out of the car. That is routine, standard police procedure, to get out of the car. Why? First of all, you want to make sure the person is healthy, and they did that. Then what you're going to do is take it a step further, and you're going to see if the person is under the influence of a drug or an alcoholic beverage. In that case, it appears they found out that the person was under the influence, possibly of alcohol. So now what the police do, they advise him that he's being placed under arrest. Very calmly, correct? We all see this. There's no way anybody can interpret what they see, although the lawyers of the deceased and the liberals and the progressives and the socialists and the communists and the politicians are twisting this entire scenario around. So let's get back to the facts. So you see the police let him know he's placed under arrest. They begin to handcuff him, and he begins to fight with them. Now, we all saw the cops rolling around on the ground with this individual. He is fighting them. He's not passively resisting arrest. He is aggressively resisting arrest. So they're rolling around the ground. Now this individual decides that he's going to take a weapon from one of the police officers. Now, folks, this idea that a taser gun is not a weapon is ridiculous. I've been on the job for 38 years, and some of the most dangerous weapons, I'll show you one, I got one right here, folks, is this. You see what this is? A pen. It's very easy for people to take a pen and bingo, gouge your eye out. So the idea that the taser gun was not a weapon is absolutely ludicrous. So now the individual has a weapon in his hand. What does he do? He decides to run from the police. Run from the police. So the police give chase. Now, the guy turns around, that is the suspect, turns around and fires at the cop. Now, what is the cop supposed to do? Now he believes his life is in imminent danger. I certainly would. Now, look if that cop got hit with that taser, he would be immobilized, and then that individual could go up and grab his gun and kill the cop. We've had far too many police officers killed in this country because they either hesitated or had to think twice because of these liberals and these progressives that are doing such a terrible, terrible disservice to the police profession that we now have cops hesitating. This police officer did not hesitate. He did what he thought was appropriate to save his life. Now, think about this, folks. Look, no cop goes to work wanting to kill anyone. Absolutely not. It's tragic that anyone dies. But it boils down to this. In all of these incidents, whether you're black, whether you're white, no matter what you are, that doesn't, believe me, folks, this is not about color. This is not about race. When I was a police officer, every cop I worked with, when we were involved in a confrontation, whether it be a passive confrontation or a violent confrontation, we didn't look at the color of the person. You either violated the law or you didn't. This individual not only violated one law by resisting, but violated another one by pointing a deadly weapon at a police officer. So the questions that need to be answered are this. One, did the suspect resist? Yes, he did. All you got to do is comply. Folks, I challenge anybody in this country to look at the 99.9% of the incidents that involved in a police-involved shooting. It started with what? Not with what the cops did on the scene with regard to approaching the individual and effecting an arrest, but with regard to what, folks? Resisting arrest. Resisting arrest. So this individual resisted arrest, and then what? Think about this one. Who elevated that situation from a simple arrest, if you will, to a deadly encounter? It wasn't the police. It was the individual suspect. By doing what? By grabbing the weapon. So you have here an individual who's approached very professionally, very calmly by the police. He decides that he's going to fight the police, assault the police, hit the police, and then decide to run. And then decide to escalate this even further into a deadly encounter. This is what has happened, folks. It's all there on videotape. Now you got a situation where this incident has now become a political witch hunt towards this officer and the entire Atlanta Police Department, a witch hunt being joined by cowardly politicians like the ones we have in Seattle, and are willing to turn over our cities, our towns, our villages, and our states to gangsters and mobs. That is what this is all about. This has nothing to do with George Floyd, who, I've got to tell you, universally, including police officers, condemned the action of those Minneapolis police officers who should have been arrested immediately. That should have never happened. George Floyd should be alive today. But this is a totally different incident and scenario from what happened there. These are police under attack, being assaulted, being shot at with a stun gun. And now we have the police under fire. So the mayor passes judgment without the investigation being completed. All right, folks, think about this. and immediately says the officer is guilty of murder and should be fired. So she fires the cop. We find out that the police chief, now this is not factual what I'm going to share with you, but this is through sources I have, but the fact of the matter is it's something you should know. The police chief, we understand, or getting information, had an argument with the mayor and didn't want the officer fired because there was no rendering of what really happened other than what we saw on the video. But the mayor begins a political witch hunt and launches this attack against the police and fires the officer, suspends the other one, and the police chief resigns. Now, folks, I've got to tell you something. I will be the first one to stand up and say if a police officer is wrong, they're wrong. There's something terribly wrong. But in this case, this cop was not wrong. Now, saying all of that, we jump over to Seattle, and you've got the same problem with socialist, communist, progressive Democrats who have decided that it is better to have the gangsters and mobs run the cities than the police. So what do we have there? We have a situation like we had in Minneapolis where the Democrat socialists told the police to stand down, not to respond. They overran the city in Minneapolis. They burned down the police department and they burned down some stores. Seattle, they want to overrun the police department. They took City Hall, they took 6 city blocks, and now they control an entire area of that city. Where are the police? They've been told to stand down, and in some cases, they've been told to run away. I do not blame the police. They are not at fault. If it was up to them, they'd go in and they'd clean this mess up within an hour. But they are under orders from these politically correct, progressive Democrats who are destroying not only the entire police profession across this country, but they are destroying this nation. Make no mistake about that. Now, I was on the media all day, and a lot of questions came up. For example, was there any alternative that the police officer had other than to shoot this individual? Why couldn't, imagine the mayor, I believe, of that city says, well, all they had to do was de-escalate and let the guy go, or make a phone call, get a cab. Folks, I'm going to share something with you that you may not know. Years ago, we used to do things like that. We used to drive drunk drivers home, and if they didn't resist, and you kind of give people a break. We did that until one time a police officer drove a drunk home, watched him go into the house, and when the cop left, the drunk came out, got in another car, and killed someone. So that stopped immediately. Now it's a mandate that drunk drivers are arrested and brought into custody like they should be. You've committed a crime if you are a drunk driver. So this idea that the police should let this individual go is absolutely ridiculous. And then the other question is, well, shouldn't the cop have let the guy run away? Folks, I could not believe what I was hearing. The guy slaps the cops around, beats them into the, listen, this guy had to be strong. Two real tough, strong cops couldn't keep him down. Takes a weapon, points it at him, goes to shoot him, that is the cop, and he runs. And the mayor and others say, the cop should have let him go. To do what, folks? To do what? To go as a drunk and to maybe get in a car and kill someone? Or if that person, think about this, is willing to shoot a police officer, maybe in the mind of that individual suspect, that was a gun. That was a gun and not a taser weapon. And maybe that individual thought that that was a gun and shot at the police officer to kill him. There's a lot of maybes going on. But the one maybe that should not be questioned is the actions of the officer. That officer did what he was supposed to do according to the book. And the book is when an individual suspect escalates, and it was the suspect, not the cops, like the liberals are saying, suspect elevates that incident to a degree where it becomes a violent confrontation, the police officer is obligated to stop that person from killing or injuring someone else, including himself, the cop. And that's what that officer did, as clear-cut as you can see on the videotape. But it's become political. Now you've got all kinds of people weighing in, putting pressure on politicians, putting pressure on investigators. We don't want trouble. Let's indict the guy. Let's charge him with murder. And then when it goes to court, leave it to the courts. I don't know if you can trust the courts today. But this police officer and that entire police department, they are being ramrodded right down the throat, folks. Right down the throat. And at the same time, you've got the call for police reform. Let's talk about that. We had police reform. We had it in the 90s. After the Democrats across this country, the socialists across this country called for police reform in the 70s, in the 80s, and a part of the 90s, and they're calling for it now. They always call for this stuff, but they do not participate in building police departments the way that they should be operating. And if you notice, folks, it's only in Democrat, progressive, socialist-controlled cities. That's right, like Chicago. Chicago, controlled completely by Democrats. Chicago, every single weekend, 18, 20 people being shot and killed. This has been going on for years. Where is the hue and cry from Black Lives Matter, from the socialists, from the progressive, and from the Democrats about Chicago? Where's the hue and cry? Where's the hue and cry when that police captain in Minneapolis, 77-year-old retired police captain, black man, was shot and killed? Where is the hue and cry? I'll tell you, there was no hue and cry because he wore a blue uniform. There was no hue and cry because of that fact. So now we have attacks against blue. Isn't that a fact? Attacks against blue. And I'm not sharing and saying to you that there is every cop is a good cop. We've got bad apples, bad cops. We've probably got worse judges and by far worse politicians ever. Because they're no longer standing for the rule of law, but they're standing for the rule of lawlessness. Just look at Seattle. Now, let's look at some of these news stories with regard to what I'm talking about. I got them right here. Now, I just shared with you about Chicago, right? Looting, burning a building, shooting people every weekend, every week, every day. People are getting shot and killed in Chicago. This is not dramatic. This is not an over-exaggeration. This is, in fact, what you can see on TV and Google. Chicago mayor vows to take action against defiant churches that continue to hold services despite lockdown orders. This is what Chicago mayor is concerned about. Churches. Churches that should not be opening before she says they should open. You got shootings every day. In fact, you got shootings down the streets from some of these churches, but she's not concerned about the gangsters, the mobsters, the people killing people in the neighborhoods. She's concerning about priests and ministers and rabbis. How dare you open your church before I tell you? Right here, folks. Got it right here. So this is what these progressives are concerned about. We also have in Chicago that she's looking for people, meaning she's looking for police officers to come in now, as well as Seattle and other cities to come in 12-hour days and no days off, no vacations to try to get the cities under control. Now, you can't have it both ways. You either defund the police like you say you're going to defund and not call the police in, or you maintain the police department with proper funding and call them in. So you see, folks, these individual progressive Democrats, socialists, they have no idea what they're talking about. No idea what they're doing. How is it that in conservative Republican cities we don't have these problems? How is it that the mayor of New York, de Blasio, is now going to take $1 billion away from the police department and suggested that the city of New York sends social workers, as was suggested in Seattle and other cities, to incidents like domestic violence? Now, let me share with you what goes on during a domestic violence situation where the police are involved. I've been involved in hundreds of them. You get a call that a woman's being beaten. And 9 out of 10 times, that is a fact. The woman is being beaten by a big, tough guy. So when you go there, you don't knock on the door, especially if you hear screaming. You break the door down. Now, you break the door down, all right, and there's the guy ready to beating his wife. So now, instead of you're there with a weapon where you can protect yourself and the wife before she gets killed, they want to send a social worker. So the social worker knocks on the door. I'm from the Department of Human Services, sir. Stop beating your wife. Folks, this is no laughing matter. I'm not joking, because this is exactly what they would do. And the guy would turn around and he would blow their brains out if he was that enraged. Or what happens a lot, folks, you're going on these domestic violence calls, a situation just like I shared with you, and this happened to me several times. We go, we wrestle the husband down, the wife gets up, she gets a weapon and starts beating the cops. So I want to ask you, what on earth will a social worker do when they get assaulted and beaten and shot at? You know what they're going to do, folks? They're going to call the police. But there's going to be no police around to respond to. That's how ludicrous and downright stupid these politicians are. But this is all part of their police reform. It began with bail reform. In most of these cities, maybe all of them, a lot of these people that are causing trouble, that are burning buildings, that are assaulting officers, I would venture to say they're repeat offenders out of prison or have been bailed out from a prior incident. Because under bail reform, many of you may not know this. You get arrested at 7 o'clock p.m., you're out of the police department at 7:10 p.m. Oh, not for shoplifting, for burglaries, for assaults, maybe in some cases for rape. Not kidding, folks. This is what the Democrats, socialist, progressives have done to this country. And it is spreading like wildfire. And unless we do something, and I mean do something effectively to put a stop to it, our country's doomed. And like I said, I'm going to share with you what we're doing and what you can do in a minute. But the fact of the matter is that we the people have allowed this to continue on and on and on and on. So the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, sees what's going on and decides that he's going to take decisive action. And what did he do, folks? And I'm not just talking about the police reform package he's putting together, which is great. I looked at some of this stuff. It's great. But he decided to tell these mayors and governors that he will give them the resources they need to take their cities back. And you know what the response he got was? Mind your own business. Stay out of our city. We'll take care of it. In fact, the mayor of Seattle said, this is a love fest. This is peaceful. Where on earth is she? Peaceful. Folks, they're in Seattle. They've taken control of the streets. They are now extorting money from people who live there and work there, demanding payment for protection. But it's a love fest. Everybody's happy. And how about the areas where they're taking drugs? I understand there's been drug overdoses, there's been medical emergencies, but it's a love fest, according to the Democrat Progressive Socialists in Seattle. And so, thank God we have a few governors, like the one in Tennessee, and there's a few tonight I read about. And even George Bush, a member of the Bush family, said, stay away from our monuments, stay away from our cities. And now I also read, and I tell you, I think this is interesting, where bikers are fed up, where bikers are thinking about going into these areas where the cities aren't and taking these cities back for the police. Could you imagine? We're living in a time in our country where we need bikers to protect the police. Now, what about the cops? I've talked about that. I've talked with a lot of them over the past few days. And a lot of them, especially from the NYPD, are devastated, morale is bad, and do not expect them to put their lives on the line anymore. No way. If they could tactically retreat within the framework of the law and their rules and regulations, that is exactly what they're going to do. And folks, I support them in doing that. Tactically retreat. Do not engage. Tactically retreat. Because when you engage, you will be shot and killed, or someone innocently will be shot and killed. And you know what? It is not worth it. This is what we've come to. Resignations, retirements are spreading across the country in police departments. Not by the hundreds, but I understand by the end of the week or within 2 weeks, it'll be by the thousands. They're talking about defunding and dismantling police departments. They meaning the progressives and the Democrat socialists. Folks, there's not going to be any police departments left for them to defund. I spoke to a few people this morning. Their children are in the police academies, their life dreams. I told them, get them out. Get them out of these police academies. Let them work for the FBI. Let them work for the CIA. Let them work for anything else but being a street cop. You can no longer win. Imagine, I'm saying this, 38 years as a police officer, retiring as a detective lieutenant, worked with police officers from all over the country. Great profession, honorable profession. It still is, except we now have a progressive Democrat socialist movement destroying this profession. And if anyone wants to put their lives on the line, their pensions on the line, their families on the line, to go out on the line and only face this political movement at one point in time in their career, you're not going to win. You are simply not going to win. So getting back to President Trump. So the president offers help. And let me get one thing straight about a word that all of these progressives, all of these Democrats, and all of these socialists are twisting and turning. One word that the president used. The president said that we need to go into these cities with dominance. We need to dominate. I use the word overwhelming. Why? Because me and the president are on the same line of thinking. You need to bring enough overwhelming and dominant force into these areas to take these cities back. He did not say excessive force. I did not say excessive force. We said overwhelming and dominant force, which means you outnumber the bad guys so that you could tactfully and strategically split them up and make arrests and prevent violence. So the mainstream media, which by the way, and we'll talk about this maybe tomorrow night, that's supposed to be writing stories, not making them up, they decided to go after the president on one word. And they came after me on the word overwhelming. Oh, you guys want to go in and bring overwhelming force and hurt these people. No one is talking about hurting anybody but the bad guys. They're the ones extorting people for protection in Seattle. They're the ones burning buildings. They're the ones shooting people. They're the ones assaulting cops. Need I go on? And like I said, any death is tragic. We as police officers know that when somebody dies, whether you would call them a bad guy or a good guy, that's somebody's son, that's somebody's relative, maybe somebody's dad. But in most of these cases, folks, the people who died as a result of resisting arrest. They died as a result of fighting the police. They died as a result of committing a serious crime. What are we to have the police do? The suggestions that we're hearing from the left, the progressives, the Democrats, and the socialists is absurd. Absolutely absurd. So there you have it. That's what happened with what we saw in the video. And now the witch hunt begins. Seattle is now in the hands of gangsters and mobs. Other cities around the country may end up like that. The police are now in tactical retreat. The police are resigning, retiring. But what do we do, folks? What do you do and what do I do? And I've always said this, and I end at around 7 o'clock. I've got about a minute, maybe 2 minutes left. One, you got to get involved. Get involved. Get involved in electing to office conservatives who believe in what? Law and order. Who believe in what? The Constitution of the United States of America. Who believe in the Judeo-Christian values in which this nation was founded upon. You need to elect people to office who are going to do what is right for all of the people. And that does include the minorities of this country. Because it is the minorities of this country who are being victimized and crying out for help. They don't care if you're a cop, if you're National Guard. Bring me help. My kids are being shot every day in Chicago. Bring me help. And that call, that cry for help has not fallen on deaf ears when it comes to the President of the United States of America, but it has fallen on the deaf ears of the Democrats, socialists, and progressives. So we need to help everyone, our police and the victims of crime. And folks, as this progresses, mark my words, as the socialist movement progresses, they defund and they dismantle police departments, the blood of crime victims will flow like at no other time in the history of this country on our streets. Because there will be no cops. There will be no cops responding when you dial 911. And it's not the choice of the police. It's the choice of the Democrat, socialist, progressives, liberals on the left of this country. Get involved. Get involved, folks. And the way you get involved is seek out some organizations in your counties, in your states. If you can't find them, we'll find them for you. You email me. I got the email. In fact, this is new to me, folks, over here. So I think okay, our email is mail@rogersforamerica.us, okay? mail@rogersforamerica.us. I just put it up on the chat. And certainly you could chat with me. At least you were able to. I actually thought I put that up already. But there's the email. Just email me. You want to get involved? We'll find somebody in your state, your county, your city. We'll find somebody you could get involved with. And then pray. There's still a God. Could you imagine these liberals, Democrat, progressives? Listen, it all begins this way. Atheism, socialism, communism. We're going to be talking about that as we move forward. All right, I hope our first YouTube live broadcast works out. We're going to be posting this up on Facebook and on Twitter, and it'll be on our YouTube channel. So I want to thank you so very, very, very much for joining us tonight. Now, we are in the middle of an election here in New Jersey, a primary election. I'm going to have a couple people on hopefully next week because I want you to hear from them because they are probably the beginning of a movement across the country. The first person is going to be Tricia Flanagan. She is a GOP candidate here for the United States Senate in New Jersey. I've had her on, and I've got to tell you, the response I got was overwhelming. So we're going to have her on in about a week or so, and then John McCann. John McCann is a congressional candidate running here in New Jersey. Both Trish Flanagan, John McCann, and there are a few others who are not insiders. They're not outsiders. They're on the side of the people. And that's what we need to do, elect people to office who are on the side of the people. Okay, folks, so that's it. I'm going to sign off. First time we're on YouTube Live. Looks like it went pretty good. I hope the audio and everything's okay. Email me. And what we are going to do, folks, is make sure that two things. You're going to get our newsletter once a month, all kinds of neat updates and links to all resources. And you're going to, we'll get you information as to who you can get involved with in your state. I think, folks, I'll let you in on a quick secret before I sign off. My wife and I might be in Florida next week in the Naples area speaking at a GOP event because in Florida, unlike New Jersey, you have freedom and liberty. In New Jersey, we're still under lockdown. All right, that's it, folks. So God bless you. God bless the United States of America. 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night here on the Campaign for America. Thank you, and God bless you.